the time I had all my executives on my airplane right after takeoff in Utah, and an engine went out, right? And all of the stepping stones of managing pressure and stress in your career, in the electrician's career, in the truck driver's career, acknowledge that those are teaching you for bigger and more aggressive and difficult challenges into the future. So it is a true story. I had an engine go out with my entire executive team in one of my corporate airplanes. Luckily, I had 2 engines, and I was able to, and there was 2 pilots in the front, but we were able to keep our calm and get the engine turned back around and land it. And I think I don't know how many kids we would have left without moms and dads with those executive team on the airplane, but it would have been a catastrophe. It would have been very bad. But I believe that all of these stepping stones in every position that I've ever had in my career were stepping stones that helped me develop the ability to handle stress and pressure. And I believe everybody has the same opportunity to learn those stepping stones. But number one is you got to acknowledge that those stepping stones aren't to ruin your life. They're to teach you and help you with your life.
True, man. And man, as always, number one, thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate that. Obviously, Steve said a lot of great things about you. What you've done is even more impressive. And I think that's kind of where we're going to harness this conversation. But in the spirit of the start of the show, Heath, let us know kind of the journey, man. I think that's a good starting point, brother. And you can take as much time or as short of a time as you need to kind of get us up to speed to where you're at. And then once I start hearing all those golden nuggets come through, I'm going to jump in and extrapolate some of them as much as I can so we can get the golden gooses out of that thing, if you know what I mean. So let's have at it, brother.
Let's go. So, if you want to have a 10-second overview of who Heath is, I'm a college dropout. I've been a millionaire in my 20s. I've been broke, and I've been a multi-millionaire again. And, so my journey begins, from a very early age of hard work, watching people enjoy fruits of their hardworking labors as I was growing up in middle class, and recognizing that, the business owners that I know are the ones that are taking big vacations and so on and so forth. So I've always worked hard. I've worked since I was 12 years old. I've always wanted to get more. I aspired for more. When I graduated high school, I probably wasn't the number one voted guy to be the most successful in our class. But there's a lot of people that maybe have been eyes wide open. But the right thing to do at that point in time was to go to college. And even though I didn't want to go to college, it was the American check in the box. This is what you do. You graduate high school, you go to college, you get in a career, you get a salary, you buy a house, you have families, you have kids. You get married, you have kids, you build a family. And so I started checking the boxes off, and I got to college, and I remember, I'll shorten the story as good as I can, but I remember a professor in one of my marketing classes. He said, "We're going to write a marketing plan for one of these Fortune 5 organizations, and this is your project for the semesters. We're going to half the semester. You're going to build this marketing plan." And he made a comment, and he said, "I've never really officially built a marketing plan for a company before, but I'm going to teach you guys how to do it." And that thought resonated with me for many days. It really screwed me up. And I wasn't doing very well in school anyways. I was ADD as hell. I still am. And so I made the decision to drop out. And I dropped out of college and went to work in a family-owned trucking business in Idaho. And it was a pretty good-sized trucking business. And they offered me a job as the wash boy to wash the semi-trucks. And with my negotiating skills, I negotiated a job, I think, for $25 or $30K a year right in there to become a dispatcher. And so I started dispatching the trucks. It was a very difficult job because I never drove a truck over the road. I drove a truck on the farm, on my buddy's farm, and so on and so forth. And I'm dispatching drivers. I'm 20 years old, dispatching drivers that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they've been out over the road driving truck their whole careers, their whole life since they were in their 20s. And so to take orders from a guy like me was very, very difficult for them. They didn't like getting their dispatches and being told what to do or asked what to do or whatever you want to call it. And so it was a very difficult job for me. But I really enjoyed learning the craft, but I realized really quickly that I wasn't making enough money for my small little family. So I pitched to the owner of the place, why don't you let me drive semi-truck on the weekends? So at a very, very early age, I learned how to drive truck, and I took a semi-truck every weekend for a long time, left on Friday afternoon, drove from Idaho to Long Beach, California, unloaded my load, picked up a load of bananas and brought them back. I was back home by Sunday evening, went back in the dispatch office Monday morning. And I did that for several years, and I learned it made me become a better leader to be able to know what these drivers were going through. Now, all of a sudden, they started to respect me a little bit. And here pretty soon the age gap become insignificant because they realized that not only was I asking them what I needed them to do, but they were comfortable with me. I knew how to drive the truck. I knew how to back the truck, so on and so forth. And I went to driving truck through Long Beach traffic with 100 miles of experience under my belt. And it was a crazy time, but I'm just kind of one of those guys that's like, let's jump and let's go and let's figure it out. Yeah. Long story short, we get into the 2000s, and a lot of my buddies that I grew up with were starting to make a lot more money than me, and they were starting to recognize some significant freedoms that money brings to them, and they were doing it all in the housing industry. The housing industry was booming, and so I made a decision because I wanted to make the money and have the lifestyle that they was. I made a very powerful decision that would end up shaping my future for the rest of my life and teaching me a learning lesson. My whole story has taught me stepping stones of lessons all the way till the seat that I sit in today, and continues to teach me. But I went out into the construction industry, and it wasn't very long before I was making a significant amount of money, more than my buddies were making. And I became a millionaire. I started building spec homes. I knew enough about it from when I was in high school, and I worked in the industry a little bit. I started working with tradesmen. And the same skills that I honed in at the truck line, where I was getting people to respond to me and do what I needed them to do in a very orderly fashion, worked very well for me in building and scaling my construction business. And then disaster struck. The housing market fell flat on its tail, and I went from becoming a millionaire in my mid-20s to losing everything. Not only did I lose all my money, I lost my business. It was $1 million business. I lost vacations that I was taking every other month, brand new pickups I was driving and buying every other quarter, spending money like it was going out of style. Another lesson that I was learning is that I knew how to create the income. I didn't have the tools in my tool belt to manage that income. I didn't have the mindset or the skill set to do what I needed to do with that income. Housing market crashed. I lost everything, and I also lost my identity. It was a very public downfall because it was a public rise. I was small rural community guy that went from middle class to now he's donating, the biggest donor at the local school and driving the fanciest cars and going on vacations. Now, I wasn't the only guy in that town that had found success, but I was one of the people that had accelerated to significant success at a very young age. And when you're in your 20s and you become a millionaire, you become noticed, right? Oh yeah. And so the downfall was very painful. I had several days that I just couldn't get out of bed. I'd lost everything. I went from driving brand new trucks to a Honda Accord. I had couple of young kids. What am I going to tell these kids? I'm a loser. I thought I had the ability to become successful in business, but maybe I don't. And there wasn't coaches, and there wasn't mentors, and there wasn't any of that we have today. I didn't know how I was going to get myself out of this funk, this mental state of mind. But the only thing I knew how to do was drive truck. So I had to earn an income to support my family. And I started with one truck, and I started driving truck every week out to Indianapolis and back from Idaho. And I would drive through the day, through the night, through the next day, and sometimes into the next night, because the only way to make enough money to climb myself out of the situation I was in was to work hard. And I tell a story that when I was driving several consecutive days and through the night and into the next days, I tell a story that is a thought that I remember having when I was driving that truck and I was trying to just earn enough money to feed my family. Is I would recognize all the traffic out onto the roads in the mornings as the sun rose, as everybody got up and went to work and took their kids to school and everything else. And then it would get quiet. The traffic would get a little bit quieter and then get busy at lunchtime as everybody had the hustle to go to lunch. And then as I kept going down my journey down the highway, I'd come through another community and it was busy in the evening. There was a lot of traffic, people going home. And then I would start to see people at baseball games or softball games off the side of the freeway as I went, or football games or Friday night light football games on. And I would take notice of that. And then a few hours later, as you keep driving, you start to only see porch lights on and all the lights out in the houses. And I remember telling myself that in order for me to ever recover from this and to ever become a successful individual again in anything, I needed to continue to work harder than what the standard habits were of the American people. I essentially needed to steal the souls of all those people that were laying in bed resting. And I needed to work while they were resting and work while they were at the softball game. And I needed to work while they were going to a nice sandwich joint to have a sandwich while I chewed on a pack of gum and ate some sunflower seeds. I remember thinking the thought that the one thing that I can do is I can work while they're not working. And I went from one truck and grew that truck line through a series of acquisitions and internal growth, and also acquiring other related entities that helped that business. I grew that truck line to a multi-million-dollar truck line, and with hundreds of trucks all across the country, hundreds of employees. At one point in time, we had trucks that you could see up on our big dispatch board in almost all of the 50 states, at least in 40 of the 50 states, where you could see trucks moving around the country. And in 2022, I strategically exited and sold that particular business to a Red Bull owned company for a higher multiplier than ever could have dreamed of for a company my size. And then to add on to that, I mentioned some of the auxiliary businesses that I acquired and grew to help support the truck line were they were fleet maintenance facilities or dealerships that we used to buy our equipment from. I would acquire them as the opportunities presented themselves. I kept them, those businesses, and now we do the service work for that Red Bull owned company, along with other Fortune 500, FedEx, and whoever else it is. We do the service work for them, and I still own those some of those blue collar service companies. Right. But one of the things that I acknowledged in that journey is that I had an ability to connect not only with the guy in the boardroom that was giving me a $60 million or $50 million or a $20 million line of credit. I also had the ability to have a beer and a burger with the truck driver or the diesel technician that was in his shop. And I could really relate to them and get them to want to be part of my journey, part of my army, part of my group to continue to scale that business. And then there's another learning lesson that I learned late, in the most recent years that I wished I would have acknowledged a little bit sooner. But I sit and I look back, and all of the lawsuits that I had as I was scaling the business, all of the truck accidents, all of the time I went broke, all of these things were lessons that were building my ability to grow and scale my business and build it into a multi-million-dollar empire. And that's what brings me here to you today. And I'm really passionate about the blue collar space, whatever it is, and so on and so forth. That's a lot of words. I'd love to turn it over to you.
Oh man. See, I get excited my gizmos start turning inside once I hear some great story of evolution like that. Man, how you only gonna give me an hour, man, to mess with you?
Love to come back on again. I'm sure we could talk forever.
I know, because I mean, in that right there, I've got 7 questions, quite literally, probably more. But listen, what's the difference? Because I'm going to get straight to it because I want you to talk as much as possible. What's the difference between the entrepreneur like yourself that exits for a fantastic multi-million-dollar exit and the one that never, ever gets past his current space and his current limitations? You were both, obviously, maybe previously the former. So how does that entrepreneur figure that out?
I'm going to tell you with one answer, and then I'll explain my answer.
Let's do it.
The one answer is the zeros in the account. Okay, there are a lot of very successful entrepreneurs, blue collar entrepreneurs that run successful businesses. But the biggest bulk amount of my wealth and your wealth and any business owner's wealth is, in my opinion, and I feel pretty passionately about this, is created when you acquire businesses and you sell businesses. And you could create a pretty good lifestyle. You could probably even make yourself a millionaire by owning businesses. But the biggest amount of financial reward is on the buy and on the sell. And I believe there's a big difference in zeros.
Right. So what does one have to do to become that person? What are they transforming in terms of who they are and their identity to look at a lens like that? Because look, I'll be honest, like, dude, one thing I love about this is, like, I don't have a problem putting myself on the table. I'm definitely building a business right now, right? That has to do with training and coaching. And that's the business that I have, that we're wanting to continue to grow, that I own per se. But you're saying that's a different type of person, like you're mentioning right there. So talk to me. How would I look at the opportunity differently and say, hey, go from this to this, and you'll go from multi-million to 100 million type of thing? Or what's the orientation there from a mentality to get somebody to transcend that current space that they're in?
Well, listen, in order to be a successful businessman, you have to create and build the foundation to be a successful businessman. And that all starts with soft skills. That starts with, being able to control the demon in your head, right? So mindset. It starts with skill set. Do you have the skill set to be a coach or to be a blue collar businessman or entrepreneur, right? Do you have the ability to overcome challenges? Do you have the ability to speak to others? So we're talking a lot of soft skills. So you develop those soft skills into a profitable business. And so many people do this, right? That's the American dream. But what I find is there are very few people, that's where they end their journey. They develop those skills and they build a business, right? And they build a successful business. But so many of them don't understand the difference between owning a business and owning an asset. All right. And you can make a lot of money owning a business. I recommend it, right? But you've got to understand, what is my purpose here? And is my purpose to generate cash flowing business until I die, and then I die and I don't have a cash flowing going on? Or is my purpose to create a legacy and to be a bloodline? I think Andy Elliott says a bloodline changer, and leave a legacy behind and spin my family in the right direction. And if that's your goal, you need to learn how to pivot your successful business into an asset. So every business is a little different, but I believe having an exit strategy, even when you're not for sale, is just as important as having a business plan. When you have a business plan, you put a plan together of how you're going to operate, how you're going to make money, what you're going to do, what your marketing looks like, and everything else. And most business plans don't include, how am I going to make this an asset? So what am I going to do to make this valuable to somebody else? Is it secret? If you're in the coaching business, do you have a secret ingredient? Do you have a secret? Do you have a special sauce that you use, a special flow of how you like to coach people? Whatever it is, in the truckload transportation business, it's understanding and knowing what potential buyers would like to see in a business like mine. So I'm building a business or a truck line so that I can make money. But even just as important or more important than that, I'm building a business that becomes attractive to potential buyers. And so the number one recommendation that I would have is understand who your potential buyers would be in a business like yours, and start working on converting your business to an asset and making sure that you always have an exit ready button at any time.
Can you control the exit ready pathway as much as sometimes it's a look? And I'm very curious your perspective on this. The luck word gets thrown out there a lot, right? Obviously, industry timing, greater market forces. There's a lot of variables in like that. I mean, obviously, to try to come in and create Uber or Airbnb today, you're kind of behind the curve. You've missed your chance, one would say. Is there more of a repeatable formula for that to get in position, assuming you understand who that buyer could be to sell it, or do you have to have other things that at your tailwind to help you to sell with the right conditions?
Well, listen, I think that you need to, in aviation as a pilot, you're trained as I'm a fixed wing pilot and a helicopter pilot, and you're trained to do a go round if you're coming in for landing and it doesn't quite look correctly, right? And I have a story that I tell, and I'll just be real quick in telling it, that I had an opportunity to sell my business about a year and a half before I ended up selling it to Red Bull. And I thought that the timing was right. And I thought that I was exit ready, and we got 3/4 the way into the deal, and the valuation of my company started dropping a lot less than what I thought it was at. And to be honest, when I went into that deal, I wasn't very humble. I was too confident. I was confident that I was exit ready. And what I did in aviation, we call it a go around. And in go around, you pour the throttle to it and you go circle back around and you try it again. And so there is a little bit of luck, but there is also acknowledging and knowing what you want to see as far as the outcome goes. You want to sell at the right timing. And as fate would have it, I did that go around so that I could better work on my business and make sure I was more exit ready than I thought that I was. And I was coming off a market that wasn't, in a market-driven industry that wasn't ideal. But what does most markets do when you're in a down market? Usually, it's always followed by some sort of an up market. So I did the go around. I worked on my business, and sure enough, COVID happened. And the tail end of COVID was the best 2 years, maybe 2.5 years for some people, in truckload transportation financials than it's ever been since deregulation in 1980. And by the time that happened, my exit was ready. I had done the go around, made your exit ready. So did I know it was going to be that good? I knew it was going to be better. I didn't know that I was going to be at that top of a market. But what I did do is I really focused on being exit ready. So yeah, there's a little bit of luck, but I think there's a lot more preparation than what you realize when you're getting ready to sell your business. A lot of preparation. Yeah. Most people sell their businesses in the blue collar space, especially because they have to. There's an ailment, or they've passed away, or they're not doing financially well, and so they have to do their business. But if people would prepare their business for an exit so that they could properly time the exit, you're not as reliant on luck that way, in my opinion.
Interesting. So if I again, this is flowing through me. So if I'm hearing you correctly, something leads me to believe that you're probably acquiring different companies now, right? Or you're doing some form of that. And you're saying part of your business mentality is, let me go and acquire, as many blue collar companies as I can, bring them in and make them part of a portfolio. So let me ask you this question for anybody out there that's trying to think through this as well. So strategically, how does your value add to that opportunity for them? And how do you look at it in terms of generating the equity that you retain or some sort of interest in that business in terms of maybe structuring that deal or putting it together and creating some asset value in that. Can you walk us through some of how that looks like from your perspective?
Well, I'll always entertain acquiring another business, and with the same strategy in mind, which would be acquire a business that's not exit ready, that I can go in there and make it exit ready, add some value to it, and sell it for more. That should be every business owner strategy. But that's not what I wake up every morning with the intentions to do.
Okay.
So just to be clear on that, what I'm doing is I'm wanting to help, especially people in the blue collar space, in the trucking space, in the tradesman space. I want to help coach and teach them the tricks of buying, scaling, and selling, because that's where the money is. So we're working on. We really are focused on that. I want to help business owners. And in my previous life, I wanted to shark those owners, and I wanted to buy their business for really cheap, and then I wanted to build it in, and I wanted to sell it. Now I'm here. I feel like I've got an obligation to help as many people as I can help understand that where the dollar is. The dollar's number one, getting started. Number two, be ready for exit. And we want to help you with that. And then on the flip side of that, UBC Advisors, which is a new company this year, which is an M&A advisory firm. So we want to help coach people to make sure that they're ready to buy or they're ready to sell. And then if they're interested, they can take a look at our very, very experienced, seasoned veterans advisory group at UBC Advisors to help them through the transaction. With that being said, we'd be a fool to not look at a business if it presented itself to us that we thought that we could add a little value to and get it ready for the flip.
Totally. So totally understand that. So from that point of view, from adding value, because somebody out there is looking at themselves and saying, well, I could add some value to a company. Right? Like for me, for example, I have a lot of sales experience. I have a lot of understanding of how to grow revenue. So Heath, from that perspective, is someone like you saying, hey, we know what to do and we've been here before, so we just advised you on what to do. And for that advising, we want a percentage of equity? Or I can't imagine you're getting in there tactically. Or do you send your troops in that work for you, that come in tactically to reroute the direction of the business, get it ready to go and scale so that it can be sold at some point? Like, how does it actually execute itself in terms of putting something like that together?
We haven't ever taken an equity play in a business, but we would if the opportunity was correct. I would look at that. But what we ultimately want to do is we want to coach you and consult you and your team on becoming exit ready, even if you're not wanting to exit, but becoming exit ready, scaling your business. And then our hope at the end of the day would be that you'd give us a shot to be the advisory group that helps take your business to market. A lot of M&A advisory firms, they want to sell the for sale, or, they want to hang the for sale sign on your business. I acquired one just a week ago, a business, and the M&A advisory firm that was advising them hadn't even looked at the financials of the target company. And so they listed it based on what the business owner said was on their financials, was listed for like $1.7, $1.8 million. And I was the first one to break the news to them that this is probably worth a fourth of what your broker listed this for. So we want to do it differently. We want to coach you, make sure you're ready before the for sale sign goes on. And if we do a good enough job for you and you think we can bring you a higher yield, you'll help us or you'll give us an opportunity at the advisory firm. But equity play on the right company, we would take a look at, and we would put my group of coaches in there to help coach you and strategize and with an exit in mind. But I'm really not interested in getting in too many more businesses unless it's for the purpose of exiting. So,
I see.
Alex Armosi's doing buybusinesses.com or something like that. He's working on
right?
acquisition.com.
Yeah.
He's working on building a portfolio of businesses, which and helping people exit out of their businesses, which I think is good for him.
But he adds some sort of value to that, though, right? Like if I remember him saying something along the lines, like he becomes so the value that he adds to them is that he can attract tremendous talent, right? So if a portfolio company comes in and they're wanting to become a portfolio company, they know that he can attract, the A player that can become the CEO because of what he's done from a brand perspective. And then they also do some of the things that he's really good at, right? So is that kind of the value add piece?
At the end of the day, we'd get involved in your business if it's outside of our standard coaching and consulting agreement. We'd get involved in your business only if we all agreed on an exit play. Our goal is to build this and exit. Alex wants to accumulate. Heath wants to
get out,
build, scale, and exit it ready and sell it. That's where the money is in Heath's opinion.
Makes sense. All right, man. Hey, look, I like that a lot. That's very helpful. Talk to me about the shitty days as an entrepreneur when you're growing your company. What is the reality there? And what were you really doing, in those earliest days? And I know that's where you could probably spend 3 hours telling me, probably a whole day's worth, a couple days worth, weeks worth of stories of just stuff that you had to go through. But I think there's a misrepresentation today about what success really is when it's acquired or had versus what it really is that's needed in the day-to-day, in the choppiest, in the craziest of environments where it's not going like you want it to. You're not making any money. What do you, if you can remember as best you can, what are you really doing during those days? Like, are you going out and changing the tire on the truck yourself? Like, is that real for you in that business when you were in it? Are you out there trying to go sell the next contract because you can't make payroll? I want to know some of those stories, man, because I think that's where the Teflon is built. That's where the strength of the entrepreneur really comes through. But people need to know that that's really what it looks like in the early days, no?
Look, on your journey to becoming super successful, you're walking a tight wire, especially in the business that I made my money on. You're walking a tight wire of being a millionaire one day and broke the next. I tell a story right when we started coming out of the ashes of being broke, and about a couple years into growing our business, we'd grown it to I want to say about 20 trucks and getting just to the point where I think that I could take home, 6 figures, and to where I could be comfortable again. And
how many years, by the way, was that into that?
It probably 2-3 years.
So
probably,
2-3 years.
I would say, and we had some lucky breaks. We could go on forever, but we had some lucky breaks. But a lot of those lucky breaks were brought to me through hard work and commitment, and the fact that I had really developed my soft skill set and negotiation skills. But long story short, I'm on my way to work one morning and I get a phone call from a Colorado highway trooper. And I just barely got to the point where I could get comfortable. I could maybe go on another vacation. And this might have been year 4, roughly, but just barely starting to get comfortable again. And he says, Mr. Treasure, this is Trooper so-and-so, Colorado Highway Patrol. Do you have a truck driver named Steve? And I said, sure enough, yeah, I do. And at this time, I was very heavily involved in the dispatch operations of the business. So I said, yeah, he's in Colorado delivering this morning. And he says, well, we've got a bad accident that he was involved in. He was drinking last night and got in the truck and plowed through 30 parked cars in rush hour traffic in Colorado.
Jeez.
So some of those cars had one person in them. Some of them had multiple people in them. And you can just imagine when you plow into cars and they're going off the side of your semi truck, all of the lawsuits and the trouble that you're about to get in.
Oh, man.
Fortunately, the insurance company at the time was able to negotiate a settlement on almost all of them, except for one final carload of people. And that carload of people sued me for $1 million plus my insurance company for $1 million. And it went to trial.
Mm-hmm.
And back and forth through trial and back and forth through trial, or back and forth through the preliminary parts of trial. They subpoenaed all of any asset I have, even my kid's bicycle. And I remember asking my attorney, does this mean if we lose this case that I'm going to lose everything that I have. This business, I just arose out of the ashes of being broke. And the attorney said, as much as I'd like to tell you, no, you won't lose everything you have, I've got to be realistic with you and tell you, if you lose this case, they will want their $1 million. And if they can only get 200,000 of it, or everything you have, they will take. And that was going on. The preparation for that trial was going on for 3 or 4 months. And I remember having to show up to my office and not let the rest of my staff know that one decision of a jury or a judge was going to put us out of business again. And so I really had to develop my mindset to continue to be a leader, even though that I knew imminent close down was on the other end of some judge's decision. Flew out to Colorado, went to court. It was a long day. I remember not sleeping the night before. I remember thinking, I don't know that I can climb out of this mess twice from being broke. And it took all day long to come up with a settlement. And we ended up finally settling within the insurance limits, and they didn't take me for everything I was worth. But I remember the 3 months or 2 or 3 months leading into that court date, going to bed almost every night, looking at my kids as I was able to buy them a new bike, and just looking at them thinking, we may be homeless here and not have this lifestyle that I had just gotten back from when I'd lost it the first time. So that's a long story for a short question, but there are speckles of stories like that throughout my journey that most people don't hear about. They don't hear about the lawsuits and the people that are coming after you, and the employees that think that you should have paid them twice as much as you did. So now they're filing a claim against you. It never ends. And if you don't have the skill set to manage the pressure, you probably aren't going to make it very, very far on your journey. And I always say, and you maybe heard this before as well, your paycheck is in direct alignment with the amount of stress and challenges that you're capable of handling.
I've not heard it that way before. That's good, man. I like that.
And I was told that at a young age as a young businessman. And so every time I felt like the stress and the pressure was at a level that it was going to break me, I remembered that if I can't deal with that, then I'm not going to earn the freedoms that money is going to bring me in the future. If I can't deal with it now, how am I going to deal with it when it's bigger? And so
give me the goosebumps there. So, I mean, hey man, you can tell as many of those stories as you want, brother, with as much time as we have here. So was that a developed skill in terms of, so let's look at that, right? So like you have the pressure coming down on you, but then you have an option there. You either succumb to the pressure and quit or stop doing it, or you choose to go and rise up and not let it deal with you in the way that you don't want it to. So how do you practice for that? Or how do you get to the place where you don't choose the former option, which is I let it beat me and I quit? So are you practicing something? And I know you said soft skills, I get that. But is there something there that you just had maybe a bigger desire to win and make it? And so in that purpose for you, that pursuit, you were anti anything's going to beat me or take me down? Or help me understand that a little bit, man.
Well, listen, I think that any job that anyone has while they're developing their skills has a fair amount of pressure and stress that comes along with it. Mm-hmm. The difference that I believe between me and most people is recognizing that developing your skills and managing that stress and pressure is part of the growth journey. And so when I was a dispatcher, remember I told you I was a dispatcher, I remember being able to truck drivers don't eat right. They don't sleep right. They're never at home. They don't get to give their wife any loving. So they're typically very difficult, hard-headed people to deal with because they just live a different lifestyle than most people, right? And so I remember frequently truck drivers yelling in my ear because they're broke down on the side of the road, and I'm cautiously and calmly trying to navigate the computer system, the old green screen computer system to try to get them help. And I remember hating that aspect of my job. I don't like to be yelled at. Who does? But it was frequent. And I look back at it now and I thought that probably is something that helped teach me that it doesn't matter how elevated or how big the challenge is. It's always something that could be worked through. Just keep calm, keep positive, and work through it. And so, yeah, when I was driving truck, my biggest challenge of the day, which would frustrate the heck of me, and I would get all upset, is if I blew a trailer tire. And that would ruin my ability to earn money because I was stuck at a trailer shop, right? And then as the fleet got bigger, it turned into being sued by somebody that my truck had driven into, right? And then as my business and my wealth and everything started getting a little bigger, it started transitioning into what about the time I had all my executives on my airplane right after takeoff in Utah and an engine went out, right? And all of the stepping stones of managing pressure and stress in your career, in the electrician's career, in the truck driver's career, acknowledge that those are teaching you for bigger and more aggressive and difficult challenges into the future. So it is a true story. I had an engine go out with my entire executive team in one of my corporate airplanes. Luckily, I had two engines. And I was able to, and there was two pilots in the front, but we were able to keep our calm and get the engine turned back around and land it. And I think I don't know how many kids we would have left without moms and dads with those executive team on the airplane, but it would have been a catastrophe. It would have been very bad. But I believe that all of these stepping stones in every position that I've ever had in my career were stepping stones that helped me develop the ability to handle stress and pressure. And I believe everybody has the same opportunity to learn those stepping stones. But number one is you got to acknowledge that those stepping stones aren't to ruin your life. They're to teach you and help you with your life.
So true, man. I love that. Makes me think a lot about when I was a kid and I got in this crazy accident as a kid and it, pretty much killed me. And then all the other, I like to call them adversities, right? I mean, it's adversities left and right, left and right, left and right. And then you look back in 30, 40 years of life, you're like, shit, that was a lot of it. I'm good. I feel strong. I feel like I'm riding this wave nicely, right? So I can get with you there. Okay, man, I'm going to bring this, speaking of planes, get ready to land this plane a little bit here, man. I got to get you back for round two because there's tons of gold in here already. Last question before my last question, which is, what's the biggest lie that business owners buy into that if they stopped believing, they would be infinitely more successful as a business owner?
That's a really good question. I think the answer is probably different for every business owner that you talk to, but I think it's a pretty easy answer for me. And I think the biggest lie that business owners get caught up on is that everyone around them wants to see them succeed. And I think it's the exact opposite. The more and more success you have, I think the more people, even though they may come across initially cheering for you and wanting you to succeed, deep down inside, I think the amount of people that stack up and want to see you fail gets more and more and more the more success you get. The more you show success, the more you have success. It's a big lie that everybody's cheering you on. They come across that they are, but they're not. I can tell you that.
So is your answer to that to find that as a resource and or tool to drive you more, and you just keep plowing forward, and it doesn't, so cut them out, stop listening to that, don't let it infiltrate your psyche, don't let it bother you. What do you do to keep plowing through that? Whether it's somebody it's obvious that they're doing it, or it's just like a thought, because that could affect people from doing the activity, you're putting forth the effort, because they now think subconsciously they don't have support, so they stop doing what they need to do to grow the business. So what's the answer to that?
Listen, I think that's a multifaceted answer if you want to know the truth. I think you can start by making sure you surround yourself with the right people, and that's a difficult job to do because some points in your life you think you got the right people and you later find out you didn't. But I think you start and you never have to stop trying to surround yourself with the right people. That's number one. Number two is you have to be an expert at controlling the noise from outside. If you need the cheerleading team to help you achieve success, then you need to put it in reverse and go back and work on things a little bit more. You should be able to achieve success if zero people are cheerleading you on.
That's good.
Okay. So if you need it, we got to work on your mental space a little bit. We need to work because you shouldn't need anybody cheering you on. And if you can get to the point where you can say, I'm going to achieve this and I'm going to do it with or without the people cheering me on, is very powerful. Very, very powerful. If you're one of those that needs everybody to cheer you on, give you acceptance, so on and so forth, you're playing with fire, man. You're really playing with fire.
Yeah. You just hang them up now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Throw in the towel.
That's right.
All right, brother. I'll put it back on you. Is there anything that you want to share that you know, top of mind, top of heart, that you didn't get a chance to really dive into that helps you out? And then I'll ask you. I think I threw in an extra question there, man. I kind of slipped one in there, brother. I didn't mean to do you like that.
No, this is your podcast. You can ask as many questions as you want. You know, look, I want to shout out to all the hardworking American blue collar people that help keep this country moving, who help build this country, who are proud owners of the infrastructure of this country. They don't get a special day. They don't get a special month. They're my heroes. I want to strongly recommend anybody who's looking for something to do in their career, all the youth that are looking for something to do in their career, to get into the blue collar space, wherever it is. The next couple of decades is going to be where the money's going to be made in the blue collar space, in my opinion, and I feel pretty strongly about that. And so thank you, America's Blue Collar, and give us a follow, The Heath Treasure.
Yep.
Ultimate Blue Collar. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. UltimateBlueCollar.com. TheHeathTreasure.com. Anybody looking to have just have a chat, a little advice, a little coaching. We have group coaching that's about ready to launch, which is the Blue Collar Union. For those people that may not be able to budget the time or the pay to be on a private coaching session, watch for that to launch. But keep grinding, because I can tell you one thing. Everybody asks me, why aren't you on the beach in Mexico? And it's because Heath's head's still on first base.
I love that.
And so I can't tell anybody anymore that I believe that you need to continue running the bases, and you need to be very old or dead before you're ever going to get to home plate. So view yourself on first base and view yourself like there's still a lot more to accomplish.
You still got to score. Yeah, you still got to score. And that's so good, man.
That's right.
Hey, brother, what final question, man? What does always on the grow mean to you?
Man, that's a powerful terminology. I think that it means stay on the move, stay moving, stay growing, grow your mental capacity, grow your skill set, grow every aspect that you might need to achieve whatever aspect of success, whatever success looks like for you. Always be nurturing it and watering it and making sure that you're growing with it.
I'm with it, brother. God bless you, man. Hey, and I love that shout out to the class, to your peoples, man. I think that's a beautiful thing. Right. I think that there's a lot to be said for the one that has his tribe, and that wants to rally that tribe, and that wants to remind that tribe that they matter, and that you're right, man. America's great. My family's an immigrant family, so I understand how great America is, and I was born here in Las Vegas in America, and so some of these schmucks out there trying to ruin that, Heath. We got to fix that, man. We got to make sure we preserve the values and principles of this great country, right?
Let's go.
Come on, brother. Let's get it. Hey, man. I appreciate you so much for taking the time. I mean, I feel like we got a lot done in like 50 minutes, man. That was powerful. So I'm hooking you in for round 2 down the road once we rally this thing back up, brother. But in the meantime, God bless. Thanks for being here. and keep kicking ass, man. And obviously, congrats on all you've done, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for
brother.
having me.
Be good, man.
Talk to you later.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye.